went against departmental policy. I heard some of the other um, multifamily apartments that were brought to our attention. We can have law department and BC come before us. I know there's litigation, but there's been some public things that have been said and public movement. We want to make sure that any public information that is available is provided to the residents in the community, especially those who are, I mean, my heart's broken when you start talking about folks who can't get into their units, had to move hastily, and now don't have the ability to obtain those items. We heard about medication. We heard about, valuable property may have been heirlooms handed down. Heartbreaking, without a doubt. I remember my wife, we had her house broken into, and she had some of those precious heirlooms that her dad, who's no longer here, taken. And I know how it impacted her. So want to, walk through, again, understanding this is under litigation. So there's typically, whenever that happens, things we can say and can't say. I want to preface that to the public. But I would like for us to provide the information that we have that we can share on where we are in this process. Number one, of course, allowing people to get back in and get their precious property. But then two, the condition of the space, the building, and what comes next. So I will open up to, I know we have individuals that have joined us. We have on the screen and two individuals, if you can introduce yourself, and then we also have Corporation Counsel Mallett, who's joined us in person. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves for the record on the screen.
Morning, Council President Jason Harrison, City of Detroit Law Department.
Good afternoon.
Arthur Russian, City of Detroit, BC, Chief Enforcement Officer.
Good afternoon. So just wanted to get a first the understanding of, what's the next step, latest step, what are the conversations as it relates to allowing the residents to retrieve their items. I believe I read something that indicated the courts gave the building as well as the city a certain time frame to work something out. I want to know where we stand with that and where things are.
Mr. President, Conrad Mallett, Corporation Counsel. I want to make sure that this legislative body is aware of how hard the city of Detroit has worked as an entity to be sure that the tenants' rights have been protected. 3 years ago, not 3 weeks, Mr. President, not 3 months, 3 years ago, BSEED, Arthur Russian and his team came to the law department and said, conditions at the Leland house are unsafe. We want there to be a lawsuit filed by the law department against the owners to bring that building in compliance, and that's what we did. We entered into a consent agreement. Now, Mr. President, members of the Detroit City Council, it's important to understand why we entered into a consent agreement. Why? Because there were people living there. We did not want to displace the current tenants. The owners said that they had the capability to bring the building into compliance with our city code. That is essentially what the consent agreement said that was signed and approved by the court. We monitored their progress, and when it became clear to us a year later that they were not making the kind of progress that was important, we went back into court. Now, that's a laborious process because we were starting the lawsuit all over again. We did think that despite the fact that we didn't have a court hearing coming up for the next 4 months, that conditions in the building were such that the tenants were safe and that the general circumstance that people were living in met the basic conditions around public health and safety. We then became aware that there was water in the basement, standing water. Now, all of you don't need any education to know that standing water in the building of that size and significance is a dangerous circumstance, number one, and a direct impact on public health, number two. BSEED is checking on them regularly and doing what they can by issuing tickets. We are informing the court through the good offices of Jason Harrison that conditions are deteriorating. We get to the point where Detroit Edison then says publicly, we are going to have to suspend electricity to the Leland house because they have not been paying their bills. No one else except the city of Detroit, through the good offices of HRD, called Detroit Edison and said, don't do that. They backed away. They said, yes, we will cooperate with you. At the time, DTE said that we will not cut the power off. Lord knows, had nothing to do with anybody associated with the city of Detroit. Then the transformer breaks in the basement where the water is. And now fixing the transformer has nothing to do with DTE cutting off the power. Now there is no electricity in the building. No electricity means no lights. No electricity means no elevators. Fire marshal then comes and says, pursuant to their ordinance responsibilities, this is a dangerous building. It has to be closed. The tenants have to move. HRD, under the leadership of Julie Schneider, and Chelsea Neblett, who is the director of the tenant relocation process that we have here in the city of Detroit, who does a fabulous job, immediately contacts the tenants, and you, the city of Detroit, moves people to alternative housing. Now, the question that's important to be asked here is, where's ownership? Why is this the city of Detroit's responsibility? It's our moral obligation. But legally, this is the owner's responsibility. They're the ones responsible. When we say to them, listen, every dime that we are spending on behalf of these tenants to make sure that they are properly and safely housed, that we are getting them fed, that we are providing them resources, and in some instances, making sure that their kids are getting to school. These are costs that you are incurring for which we expect to be reimbursed. Chelsea and her team then is doing an in-depth job of giving really high, as you all know, high quality case management to each of the families affected by this particular horrible circumstance. And in the midst of that, then the Leland House then declares bankruptcy and moves the action that we have in state court to federal bankruptcy court. At that point, the owners say, and this will really, I think, bring it home. At that point, the owners say, we have $77,000. $77,000 for a 25-floor building. I don't really, maybe Jason could tell us how many square feet, Mr. President, it actually is, but you know where the building is, over on Bagley. It's an entire block. It's a huge space. $77,000, come on. Is that really what you have available for the massive amount of rehabilitation that building requires? At that point, I think that the representation made by the ownership of $77,000 is to impress upon the bankruptcy court, we're bankrupt. We are making available to the bankruptcy court in terms of showing on our ledger all of the money that we have available. It is true, Mr. President and members of the Detroit City Council, that the tenants were removed on an emergency basis and did not have time to get their belongings. That's 100% true. We have always been aware of it, and we have always been concerned about it. Now, in the bankruptcy court, the judge made the determination based on our request that those funds that were available, quote, for repair, be used to retrieve the tenant's belongings. So the idea was that we would go to each of the apartments, and we're talking about 40 to 50 of them, pack up their materials, and then take them to a public storage facility where they, at their leisure, could come and retrieve their belongings, recognizing that what Chelsea's team was doing was trying to relocate people first into temporary housing, but at the end of the day, into permanent housing. These were costs, this was support that the city of Detroit was providing the tenants. This was supposed to go forward, and then the tenants union intervened into the case and said that the tenants should be allowed to retrieve their belongings. The building has no electricity. There are no lights. You're going to be using daylight power. People are on the 21st, 22nd floor. The circumstance is no less dangerous today than it was when the fire marshal made his decision. And the fire marshal, as you all know, is a very, very deeply well-trained gentleman that we are lucky to have, who enforces the ordinance with the kind of ferociousness that, frankly, we want the fire marshal to do their job. In this particular case, we could get a moving company to go in. First of all, you got to walk up 21 flights of stairs. Who's doing that? Okay. With the moving company going up the stairs, packing the belongings, and moving them out, the tenants union indicated that they wanted an opportunity to have the tenants do that themselves. Fire marshal said no. Now, the fire marshal said, how are you going to get that done? The difference between the professional moving company is the presence of insurance, the presence of workers' compensation, and the fact that the moving company is signing a waiver absolving the city of Detroit of any and all liability associated with the removal of the belongings. Now, during the time that we have, there's another hearing coming up, Jason, on the 24th.
Through the chair, that's correct. February 24th.
On the 24th, well, we go back in. One of the thoughts that Mr. Harrison had, because the tenants quite rightly want to be have a personal interest in how their belongings are managed. The fire marshal is going to have 2 inspectors present to be sure that things are being done in a safe manner. And the idea that Mr. Harrison had that I fully support is that we could have 1 or 2 members of the tenants union present to be sure that the process is working, that everything that is being done in an appropriate and respectful manner. What we don't have, Mr. President, is a solution that will allow the tenants to re-enter the building until the transformer is fixed and the lights are turned on, because it's a physical impossibility to move all of those things out if you don't have the requisite personnel and the equipment. We are where we are, not because anything that City of Detroit did. City of Detroit, the Detroit City Council can take, I think, some degree of pride in the way that the bureaucracy of which you are the governors have responded. HRD has done a good job in providing housing relocation and case management. The law department started this process against this ownership group 3 years ago. We weren't late to the party. We had the concerns of the tenants' health and safety forefront. BSEED has been omnipresent in dealing with the issues associated with the lack of accountability and the lack of compliance associated with the owners of the Leland house. The owners of the Leland house are the ones who created this issue. It is the city of Detroit who has responded vigorously. If there was a way that would satisfy the fire marshal in terms of the tenant safety to retrieve their belongings, remember, retrieval, the belongings have to be packed, they have to be put in boxes. This is a process. This is not something and that it would happen quickly with the presence of a professional moving company with all of the requisite resources available. We think that it could be done in an organized manner. This is the insurance company would be bonded or is bonded. Excuse me, the moving company is bonded. People will be able to make claims should there be any damage to their property. The major thing is getting the tenants their property back, getting the tenants relocated into permanent housing, and causing these owners to bring this building into compliance. And if they're not going to bring it into compliance, then they have to sell it. They have to do something in order to bring the building into compliance. And if they're not going to do anything, then we have an ordinance related to how you maintain a vacant building. They at least have to do that.
It sounds like they haven't even reached that at this point. That's why
I'm sorry?
It sounds like they haven't reached that point. That's why we have them in court. If I'm not mistaken, they have not.
Well, they
reached that
declared,
compliance.
Mr. President, yeah, they declared bankruptcy,
Mhm.
and so they're telling the judge that they want permission to sell the property.
Mhm.
The conditions of the property obviously will not change just because you get a new owner. And
Correct.
so then under that point, you still have court supervision to oversee, well, what is the new plan?
So I guess the question, I mean, I'm trying to take a long answer and truncate it a bit. DTE, and then they're not here today. It sounds like the transformer piece is what really took everything over the edge.
Yes, sir.
What has been, I know that we, on the front end, we talked to DTE and said, hey, stall us out a bit. Let the community, let us try to figure out, how to rectify this. And they stood down.
That's right.
How long has it been now since that transformer has been out? And is that still a push from us to get DTE to at least allow the transformer to be repaired? Because the transformer really shouldn't be the property owners. That should be the infrastructure.
Transformer
DTE.
is the ownership issue.
Oh, the transformer
Yes,
is
sir.
ownerships as well?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. So I guess the question, just to summarize it for folks, what pathway are all parties taking? I mean, again, commend law department, commend HRD, commend BC at this point. If we're talking about, especially we're talking about a 3-year process, not to take anything away from the 3 entities, city entities in particular. But now we have residents who have concerns about their property. And it sounds like we, as the city, are trying to figure that out.
Yes, sir.
Part of the challenge that we have is that level of communication on what that looks like. Folks are coming to us constantly asking for answers that we cannot provide. So in a truncated version, what should folks expect in terms of movement to allow for the residents to retrieve their property? Again, understanding that we are limited. We don't have a magic wand we can just wave. We don't want to have folks jeopardize their health and safety in a building that is unfit for them to walk in. But just looking for a time frame to now try to see where we can advance this particular issue, knowing again, we don't have at this point the legal obligation, but the moral obligation to make sure that we communicate to our residents and do everything we can to make sure that they are as whole as possible in this situation. Give us a little short version of what they should expect and a potential timeline.
So, Mr. President, we meet with the court on February the 24th. We hope to get the court's permission to cause the move to occur. And then, Mr. Harrison, how many of the tenants have signed off and given us permission to enter their space?
We've been told through the chair, we've been told by HRD approximately 20.
And out of how many?
Out of 31.
So we have permission, Mr. President, of 20 persons to enter their space, to pack their belongings, secure them, and deliver them to a public storage facility where they can, at their leisure, retrieve their belongings.
So for the record, it sounds like Mr. Harrison, Attorney Harrison has the information. Are we, for those remaining individuals that have not signed off, is it a situation where they have either refused or we just have not been able to locate them to fill out a particular form of approval?
No, we know where all 31 tenants are, Mr. President. So far, the 11 have not given us permission to enter their space. We need them to give us their permission to enter the space.
All right, colleagues, any additional? I'll start with Member Miller, followed by Pro Tem, followed by Member Waters.
Corporation Counsel, you said you guys weren't late to the party. It sounded like you didn't show up at all to me. This is 3 years. 3 years, and it took a year. You've had a consent agreement. The building was deteriorating long before that, but again, we're talking about low-income residents who people sometimes don't care about. This building just did not become unsafe to live in. They've had many maintenance failures, health and safety issues with mold and water damage and pest infestation. This is not new. The code enforcement action made it not livable a long time ago. We have a department here called BSEED. You say it's not our responsibility, but it is our responsibility. That's why we have building safety and engineering. We have to make the tough decisions, not when it's an emergency, but long before it becomes an emergency. You have to show up so you don't have to get up the last minute. When that building started deteriorating, our job was to shut it down. Here we are 3 years later. 3 years later, and we're still saying to these residents, they can't get their things. And first of all, I don't want anyone touching my stuff. I might have my great grandmother's heirloom somewhere. I may have my deceased child's photos somewhere. People packing your stuff, we know what that looks like. We get it every day when we get stuff in the package, in the mail that's tore up and broken. We had ample time to take those residents in there to gather their things because we knew 3 years ago the building was deteriorating. We knew that we should have not waited for DTE to alarm the city. Thank God for DTE, because had they not informed the city, it would have been even worse. And this is in the worst of temperatures. Our residents came here today upset. So I guess the 20 that signed off, the other 11 or 12 didn't, because they were here today speaking. It's an embarrassment for me to hear my heart palpitating, to hear residents that are dislocated because we could have done a better job. We have things in place, and that's why we have inspections regularly. I have asked the Department of BC to provide with me some of those numbers that I'm still waiting for. It is not right for us to stand here and say we've done the best that we could when we did not, because our best was not good enough. It's not good enough for me, and it's not good enough for our residents. And I am in District 5 every day. I'm going out, I'm knocking on doors, and I'm talking to residents because they're calling me. And do you know, I have been in buildings where I have been bombarded with, I see no residents because the office people want to hide them from me. I know what's going on. I was at a building and my staff was told they could not even enter the building. I was told I couldn't even enter a building. And when I had a roach in my hair, that our EP unit had to knock out for me because the ceiling was open. It was unsanitary. We have failed a lot of our senior buildings in the city. A lot of our buildings, period. We have failed them. And it's not right to act like we don't have a responsibility when we know 3 years is too long. 3 years when they were out, they've been on television, before the holidays. If someone can go in there and get those things, someone can escort them people in there to get their belongings. Sure, they can be escorted just because it's their place. And when they're paying their rent, those landlords took their rent. they got their money. And that is not right to take their money and then all of a sudden, you just imagine giving your last dollar to pay your rent and then you're put in the street in 15 days. Where are they to go? Some of them don't have family, they may not have children. It is not right to sit here and talk about these landlords as if, yeah, you said they're the lowest scum of the earth that's taking their money and then running off with it. I don't care how much they had. It's not right. And we need to call it exactly what it is. We need our law department to stand up. We need the BC to own up because it's not right. And I am so disappointed. Even just being a newly elected person, my phone is ringing. Right now, I'm calling to a meeting because I am going into the buildings. What I'm not about to stop. I'm going every single time they call. They want to stop me from taking pictures too. Because we've done a poor job. Anytime you have 70,000 landlords that have not been compliant in the city of Detroit, that's a problem with the leadership. And the leadership need to be removed. Thank you.
Pro Tem Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to ask you, do you think that this was negligence? Or do you think this was, and do you think this was gross negligence? And the reason why I'm asking that is because if you do, from my understanding, this would qualify for treble damages. And if it did, I think that not only could the city recoup for the costs, but also we can provide money. You'll talk hypothetically here, but also we can provide money for the residents who lost they lost access and lost their housing.
So, Mr. President Pro Tem, through the chair, that's one of the reasons that I'm fairly positive that the ownership went into bankruptcy court. Through the state court process, you're right, treble damages would have been possible should we have prevailed in the case. In bankruptcy court, the city of Detroit is a creditor just like everybody else.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a law expert or a bankruptcy expert, but I'm assuming even if they're going through that process, there are assets that this company holds. I don't know about their portfolio, but I'm assuming they hold assets they could sell to be able to pay for or liquidate through that bankruptcy process for the purpose of being able to pay out.
Which is why, Mr. President Pro Tem, they're seeking permission from the court to sell the building. They want to sell the building so they can pay their creditors.
Okay. But in terms of paying the creditors, like you were saying, that's just paying people at cost, and we're not talking about treble damage.
That's right.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Because I understand what you're saying and why you're doing that. But I just think that what happened was so incredibly egregious. The way in which not just the residential tree, but the fact that they were negligent. They knew that the power wasn't working. They knew about the water in the basement. They knew that these things happened. It didn't do anything. I just think that is a classic case of treble damages. People have been harmed here. The city is spending money it should not be seen. Taxpayers are having to carry this weight and been harmed as well. So I think not only should the city be compensated for that, but I think the people who have suffered from this should also be compensated. And I think treble damages is the best way to be able to do that legally. And so I understand, you have to go through the process. And again, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to sit up here and try to lecture former Supreme Court justice on the law. But I do think that this was such a classic case of just gross negligence. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Member Waters, followed by Member McCampbell, followed by Member Santiago Romero.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Over a year ago, we passed 2 ordinances. Tenants' rights so that buildings could organize, could form their own tenant right council within their buildings. The compliance ordinance, which would allow them to place their rent in escrow so that if in fact all those things that were happening at the Leland building, they didn't have to pay their rent. So I heard today that even in spite of those conditions in the buildings, some of the tenants, if not all of them, went back and gave the owners, the Leland apartment building, monies that were in arrearage. I don't understand why somebody will advise them to do that. That is absolutely reckless for them to do that, especially under those types of conditions. So I think that there's an education piece here that we absolutely must do, and we've been trying to do this. Team Waters has been trying to go around to the various buildings, help them to organize so that they understand they don't have to take this stuff. Organize, put your rent in escrow. Don't pay a single penny until your needs are met. And that's where we want to take our residents who lives in these buildings, Mr. Corp Counsel. That's what we need to do. Educate people, empower people. The purpose of those ordinances was to empower the residents who rent space. So how soon can how soon does the law allow you all to shut down a facility when it's not in compliance? How soon? And then number two, is there a way that we can just take this building ourselves? I know it's a private owner, but I've got to tell you, they don't deserve to own this building. And I know you're saying that perhaps they're going to sell it, but they're not even worthy of any type of commission, any sale at all, based on the way they've treated these residents.
So, Member Watts, as it relates to the legislation that you're describing, yeah, we've been working on, and I do know that my colleague, Diamond Conley, has been working very diligently with Team Waters to get the Tenants' Rights Commission up and running. We are close to having that fully functional, and I think that will be a huge step in the right direction. As it relates to shutting the building down, that would occur with us going to court and getting permission from the judge, shutting it down. And that's going to be for the judges, your Member Water. It's going to be a last ditch effort. They are really going to try to order and figure out with the owner how soon they can in fact come into compliance. They are not interested in displacing the tenants. And so if the tenants are living in a circumstance that's been deemed either by the health department, by BSEED, or the fire marshal as being a danger to public health and or safety, that's the basis for us to go to court. And then it really is a determination for the judge to determine whether or not we have represented the facts that they can make a decision. The issue is always going to be, does the owner have the resources to bring the building in compliance? Does the judge accept the compliance plan that they're going to put forward? And if the judge doesn't and shuts the building down, then housing relocation through HRD then has the huge responsibility of moving the tenants into appropriate housing. And you know, that is not always, as you know, an easy task.
Yeah, I know. I know that some of my staff members were engaged in trying to help relocate some people from the Leland building. Residents' belongings. Is there a way when people go in to pack up, can they notify that resident of that particular apartment that, hey, we're going to be here on this date at that time to pack your things? And I know they can't necessarily go up in the building because the elevators and nothing else are working, but can they be outside? Can they be somewhere so that they can kind of, in some way, have the dignity of overseeing what's being removed from their apartment?
So, Member Watts, actually, I think that's a good idea, and I'm glad Jason is on the call. We can figure out whether or not we can do something like that. And if it's not the tenant per se, maybe it is a tenant representative. Maybe there's more than one. Maybe there's a way for us to do that. We will try to figure out a way with the fire marshal's cooperation to get as much involvement with the tenants in some way to supervise the packing of their belongings.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an impossible request. We just have to figure out what is going to be the safe way that the fire marshal will accept us doing.
Okay, all right, well, good. I'd like to know, because I want to make sure that we do all that we can to ensure that the tenants are present in some way, participating in the packing and so forth, so that we can ensure where their belongings are going. They need to be able to help supervise that in some way.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
The chair, can I have one comment to that question, court counsel, and through the chair?
Yes.
Yes, just FYI for the city council members and for you, Councilmember Waters, HRD has worked with many of the tenants. I don't have the number, I defer to HRD, and they do have an inspection checklist where they've taken down what they think the tenant thinks they have in their property so that HRD would know that. So I just wanted to make sure the body knew that we have worked with them in that regard. I defer to HRD for a specific report on how many tenants that includes, but they have done that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
We're going to swing over to Member McCown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. I just want to touch on a few things. At first, I understand that this is a large undertaking, especially for a building, and to have 30 families that have to relocate and move out. I'm 43. Okay, gotcha. I'm still here sitting really with a lot of disappointment, and we knew that there was issues with Leland. We were in a consent agreement. It doesn't sound like conditions improved dramatically and then disintegrated. And I'm just concerned about week after week here at City Council, we've had folks, tenants at senior buildings, come to us and say that their conditions are deplorable. And also, but then when we go to dangerous buildings, we see action taken on homes that may be missing a window on the second floor. So it's disappointing in what I perceive as an imbalance of enforcement here. And I want to give the benefit of the doubt to the new administration that we'll get this right. But as we're working to get this right, we're still having families that are displaced and living in deplorable conditions. So I say that to say that we have to do something immediately to fix this. And because I know, again, it's a large undertaking, but day after day that folks have to be without their things, they have to be relocated. That is not something that sits well with me, and it's not something that we can be proud of or happy about. And so I just want to say that to you, Corporation Counsel, and the folks that are here at BC, that we have to see a difference in enforcement here with landlords that do not care about our families. It is very clear that these landlords of Leland did not care. It's very clear the folks that are coming down to us that they do not care, and we have to hold them accountable in that way. But I have a question on this as we're talking about folks' belongings. I'm not a lawyer either, and I'm not an electrician. But if the transformer is the problem here and we have the owners in court, could we ask the court to get the owners to fix that transformer so folks can go into that building?
So through the chair, Councilperson McCampbell, at one point, the available dollars were supposed to go for the transformer. But then that wouldn't have given the necessary dollars to take care of the other, what according to the fire marshal were other public health and safety issues. So, I mean, if one of the things that we can do, although I don't know whether or not it's going to work, I mean, if we went back to the judge and said to her, okay, now we've changed our minds, instead of securing the tenant's properties, we want to turn the transformer back on and then have the tenants be responsible for moving the property out themselves. what I don't know, councilperson, is that's not gonna be the cost of moving is not gonna be free, and how much time are we gonna give people? What I think is that the idea put forward by Councilperson Waters that we would find a way to have the tenants themselves involved in the supervision of the removal of the property would get us closer to where I think the fire marshal would want us to be.
So on that, right now, with the cost, if we were for professional movers to move the things out, who is covering that cost initially?
City of Detroit.
The city of Detroit. So I understand what you're saying in that way of going, I don't see this as an either or. What I meant is that even once the things are moved out, we're still gonna that building's gonna have to get up to code.
Yeah,
And part of that is fixing the transformer.
yeah.
So for me, I don't trust that once we get these things moved out, that the owners will then miraculously, or the folks that they sell it to, will work hard to get it up to code. So I also, to my colleague's point of asking about taking over this building, I honestly think we're going to get to a point where the city is in ownership of this building, and I feel that we should move quickly on that. But my question is, in trying to get it up to a place to be in code, that I think we should attempt to do both, that we are attempting to get the folks stuff out in a professional way, in a way that is not cost prohibitive or costly to the residents there. And we should make sure that we're holding the owners accountable to get that transformer fixed to at least get electricity in the building. So I know again that you all are in court, but I hope you all would consider that because I think that will solve what folks are down here asking for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any reflections on that at all?
So, I mean, I think that we're gonna have to get with the owners council, have to get with HRD, Mr. President. I mean, there was not necessarily a budget associated with this move, but there are costs being incurred. At a certain point, HRD is gonna have to make a decision, how the dollars that they have available are going to be allocated. I don't know. I mean, even if I don't know. We get the transformer back on. That's going
Is
to
there a
be,
cost that we are aware of? We know there's a cost, but do we know what that cost is?
No,
to
I
repair
don't.
that transformer?
Yeah, I don't. So if that, so but you get the transformer turned back on. DTE provides the electricity. Then we have to make a determination and arrange with the tenants how they get their belongings out. I mean, I think, Mr. President, we just have to put it all on the table and figure out whether or not the additional cost is worth the
Additional cost as in potentially the $75,000?
plus the cost of moving all the material out and everything else. I mean,
But we were planning that anyway at this point, right?
I'm sorry?
We were already planning that at this juncture.
But it was an either or.
Well, I mean, again, 75,000 on top of it. So right now, according to what Member McCampbell just mentioned, is essentially a $75,000 additional lift.
Well,
That's what it sounds like, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, assuming that's correct, yeah, so it'd be whatever the cost is of moving the tenant's property out of the building where it is into public stores where they have easy access, plus the $75,000. So we still, in order to make sure that this happens in an appropriate manner, we'd have to get the transformer back on, have the electricity turned back on, so that the tenants could then individually oversee the packing and the removal of their material. And so all of those costs then would be what we would have to decide we're going to spend.
Okay. So we're not going to solve the issue right now, but and I know we still have members who are in queue. But I am very interested in having a conversation. It sounds like other members are as well after this session wraps up at some point, so that we can have, there's a lot of ideas that are now put on the table that sounds like it may take us to a point where we may have to spend additional funding, but at least provide a temporary relief, hopefully long-term relief for our residents. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. We're going to go down the road here. I know, no. I'm chairing, y'all. Trust me, I got it. And we're going to wrap this conversation up because everybody had an opportunity to ask questions after we get through this round, because we still have a whole agenda that we have to address. Okay. Next up is Member Santiago Romero, followed by Member Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to say thank you to Leland residents for being down here and for really amplifying this issue. We have been working with residents, and quite frankly, these ideas are not new. We have been asking that we be creative, that we replace the transformer, that we put the power on, that we get people their stuff back. That is what we've been asking, and I'm grateful that it's here now, that we're all collectively asking for this, because I've spoken with the other party of potential new owners and folks trying to sell the property. And when they tell me what it costs to replace the transformer, and that is something that I believe they can pay for. The biggest issue here, from what I can see, is not being allowed to go into the building because of the lack of power given the fire marshal's order. So we need to be creative. Somebody needs to pay the cost, and that whether that be previous, new, or the city, it's what we have to do. We need to make sure that people get their stuff. That is the basic. And that is what we've been asking for since the beginning. I think the question is who's going to pay for it, because someone has to pay for it, and how we get people back into the building. And the conversation with the fire marshal, I understand safety. I understand that we don't want people going up 20 flights of stairs without power, but I do believe money exists. We can find it. Someone has to be responsible to pay that bill. People need to go back up there to get their things. We have been sharing this forever. People have lost jobs. People are struggling now to find housing because of their lack of important documents. This is really taking way too long, and what needs to happen is someone has to pay the bill. The power needs to be back on, and residents need to get their stuff, period, as quickly as possible. So these creative ideas are not new, but something needs to happen. There just needs to be action, because we've been having these conversations. I've called the fire marshal. I've talked to potential sellers and the current owners. I think we're dancing around the who's going to pay the bill, and when are we going to turn the power back on so people can get back into the property. That's what we have to do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next, Member Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Member Santiago Romero just stated everything that I was about to articulate. But let me just say, okay, the current owner pays the $75,000 for the transformer. The city is already providing financial support or financial resources to provide shelter for the families that were displaced. Why not take those dollars, make a phone call to DTE, because we know we have a relationship with them, to get the power back on for 48 hours, whatever it is, to allow the residents to go and get their belongings, and we move on. I don't understand why we're still here in this position.
So, Member Johnson, as you well know, the law department doesn't control HRD's budget. We've had these discussions, and there is a finite amount of dollars. I will go back to all of my partners in the administration and indicate to them that perhaps we have reached the point where the dollars that people didn't say they have, they're going to have to find, because there doesn't appear to be another way forward.
The dollars are there. The dollars are being used today, right, to provide assistance.
So,
Excuse me.
yeah, Member Johnson, you know this process a jillion times better than me. HRD has X amount of dollars for housing relocation. They're spending those dollars now as we speak. And at the end of the day, they will have spent the money down. And so if what we're saying, and I'm sure they're listening, that it is certainly the expectation of, I believe it's safe to say, a majority of the Detroit City Council, that we spend the dollars necessary to allow the tenants to retrieve their belongings, which may mean then getting the transformer repaired, getting the electricity turned back on, getting the elevators back working, and then supervising a program so that tenants can retrieve their belongings. And that is a cost that HRD is going to be required to bear. That's the message that is being delivered today emphatically by, I believe, a majority of the Detroit City Council. And I'm sure HRD is listening. And they're going to have to internalize it. And as President Tate said, he wants to hear a plan back from all of us collectively as to what we're going to do. So we will certainly take the message back.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to add to Council President's request that this be provided within 48 hours. It just doesn't seem like it needs to take us another week before we go to court to figure out how to address this issue. So certainly look forward to hearing that. Now, I want to echo something that Member Miller talked about as it relates to BSEED. So when I do the quick math, this building was 87% unoccupied. Did this building have a certificate of occupancy, a certificate of compliance? How do we have 40 units of a 340 unit building that is still occupied, and we as a city have not shut the building down? What's going on with the rest of the building that it's habitable for residents to still be there? That's a great challenge. I think that's something that BSEED needs to be more proactive in, making sure that these buildings do not get to such a state of disrepair that we end up in this situation. And we know that we've heard time and time again that we have multi-unit complexes, multiple stories, that the elevator has gone out, this has gone out. And it just continues to add up. We have to get in front of the issue, especially as we know we're facing housing challenges. If we have to relocate folks, we can't relocate them in the city of Detroit. That is a significant problem that we have to get in front of. And I think BSEED has to be the entity that helps us get in front of this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I know we have Mr. Rushing online. If would like to give you an opportunity to provide any commentary, Mr. Rushing. Mr. Rushing.
No, thank you, Mr. President. I hear everything that's been said. And we do actively do enforcement with problem properties. But I think what needs to be stated is that for the past 3 years, that this property has been out of compliance. The property had not deteriorated to a point to where we felt that it needed to be vacated. The property had electricity, the property had heat, the property had hot and cold running water. And so because the property did not fall into a state where it was deemed uninhabitable, we didn't want to displace those tenants. And so that's the reason why that building was not vacated. But we did reach out to the law department because of the history of noncompliance to try to help move this owner closer to compliance with the consent agreement.
Mr. Chair, if I may just add something to the conversation. I think there are many times when BSEED is looking for the mechanics in the building to be functioning to indicate that that is a habitable property. I think we need to be reaching out to the health department as well, because if the building has water in the basement, we already know, and I don't even need to mention anything that's happened in District 4 as to how hazardous that is for residents, particularly children and our seniors. So I'm not sure whose responsibility that is, but I think the health department needs to be involved in these conversations to make sure that we are all mindful of the health and safety of all of our residents throughout the city. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I know that we're approaching the budget period, if you will. As we get closer to the end of the year, that now creates that opportunity for us to figure out what reprogramming of dollars and departments that may not have been able to use those funds can, in fact, serve as reprogramming dollars to go to something such of this nature. We're going to wrap. I see, Ms. Neblett, you came up because you have something you want to add. And we're going to allow you to add your commentary. Then we're going to go to Member Waters and we're going to wrap it up because we're going to get to the rest of our agenda.
Her first or me?
She's going to go first.
Okay, all right.
For last.
Good afternoon to this honorable body. My name is Chelsea Neblett. I'm the Chief of Housing Solutions and Supportive Services in the Housing and Revitalization Department. I just wanted to note that I did come up late. I heard the request, and speaking with Madam Mayor, we are committed in HRD to work with the law department and the fire department on a creative solution to ensure that residents receive their belongings. We understand the hardship. We have been supporting through case management and heard in terms of the direction to get an expedited resolution. So just wanted to state that for the record, and thank you for the conversation.
Thank you. Member Waters with the final word.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to ask that HRD also present this body with a budget in terms of what it's going to cost everything that you'll be doing with the Leland apartments.
Through the chair to Member Waters, understood, and we can work on that, yes.
All right, thank you. Now, for Corporation Counsel, the land bank closes that, take people property all the time under nuisance abatement. Let's take this one, using nuisance abatement. Because it meets all of the requirements. Am I correct? Yeah.
I mean, the law department does not direct the activity of the Detroit Land Bank.
Well, I understand, but I'm talking about nuisance abatement. I mean, anybody can do that. The city can do it. Probably BC can do it. Land Bank has been doing it, taking property that they should never have done in the first place. So I'm talking about using nuisance abatements to take this Leland property. I mean, it's a nuisance. Can we do that, Corp Counsel?
That's going to be an administrative decision.
They can't do it without law.
No, they can't. Right, but remember, a decision of that consequence is going to necessarily have to involve the administration. I mean, you're talking about taking a building that occupies an entire city block and saying that we are going to manage all of the costs associated therewith. And, the administration is going to have to weigh in and give the direction to the law department to, in fact, initiate that particular lawsuit.
Okay, all right, I understand that. Okay, we have the administration to weigh in. But I'm talking about the law. The law allows us to do that. Am I correct?
The law allows us to bring an action for nuisance abatement, and the idea that we would take over a multi-family entity of this consequence, it is probably legally possible.
Yeah.
Again, but the legal possibility is certainly going to have to be managed in conjunction with the administrator's decision about how they want to spend the resource.
Sure, I get that, Corp Counsel. I just want to make sure that we can legally do it if we choose to do so.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As I mentioned, we won't solve it all here, but there will be an opportunity. There is going to be an opportunity following this meeting, not necessarily today, but we're going to try to reach that 24-hour or 48-hour deadline that my colleague just put on the table as well, which is definitely needed and worthy. So thank you. I asked.
It's quick. It's quick.
You did not go yet. So Member Callaway, and that shall close out this discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
I just could,
Member Callaway.
just a real quick question. Can we place a lien on the property since it's still privately owned? Can
Yes,
the city
ma'am.
place a lien on
As
the
soon as
property?
when the court hearing out of the bankruptcy or the court hearing out of the state court, as soon as there's a judgment, yes, we can place it.
Okay, I'm respectfully requesting through the chair that a law department do whatever it takes to place a lien on the property.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Member Callaway, just to make sure it's solidified, if you put that in writing, we can all ensure that we follow that particular line. Thank you again. We appreciate it. We are definitely going to be back in touch as we try to resolve this issue ASAP for the residents. Thank you all for coming out as well. We appreciate you keeping us aware and abreast of what's going on. And hopefully you see we're not just playing with this. This is complicated. It's a lot of different entanglements that we have to go through to get this done, but we hear you and we're working with you. And thank you again. Appreciate you. All right. All right, Madam Clerk. Understanding Committee reports from the Budget, Finance, and Audit Standing Committee.